So today on ACE TV, we're going to be talking to a bunch of wonderful, diverse people from the ACE community who are here to share some of their experiences. So over here, we have our friends Lammy and Frights the cat, and they're a wonderful pair of boyfriends. They're dating each other, both guys. I see that you use a cane. Does that interfere with how people see you as an ACE person?
Well, sometimes they think because I have a disability that I am completely non-sexual and that I should just give up on it. But that's not true, because look at my wonderful boyfriend.
So, do you consider that a sexual relationship then?
Well, we haven't really got to that part of our relationship yet. We're going to discuss it. I'm kind of sex indifferent, but it's some conversation we're going to have in the future, but not right now.
So what does that mean? Are you still asexual?
Of course I'm asexual. I don't experience sexual attraction, not even to my boyfriend. But if my boyfriend, Fright, would like to have sex sometime in the future, I wouldn't be opposed to it. But like I said, that's a personal conversation for us to decide.
That makes sense. I heard you two talking the other day that you were saying that you identify as WTF romantic? What does that mean to you?
Well, it kind of means that I'm just not 100% sure where I identify on the romantic spectrum yet. I'm still figuring it out, but one day I might come to a conclusion or I might not. But for now, I'm just WTF romantic, and that's where I'm comfortable.
WTF romantic or queer romantic is an identity label that some people use to describe how their experiences of attraction might be ambiguous, unclear, or best expressed by a question mark. People might identify as WTF romantic or queer romantic if they have trouble understanding romantic attraction or difficulty distinguishing between romantic and non-romantic forms of attraction, or if they feel that the idea of a romantic orientation generally isn't useful for them or it doesn't apply to their experiences.
That makes sense. So, Frights, you're a cis guy. So coming to interact with all these new words and labels in the ACE community was probably a little bit different for you, even though you're familiar with some of them from the LGBT community.
For sure. Well, I'm definitely learning about a lot of new terms in the ACE community from my relationship with Lammy. But the most important thing is that I love Lammy. Even if Lammy never wants to have sex with me, that's okay. I love him anyway.
And you're not ace. You're not asexual, are you?
No.
No, okay. So, I know that Lammy's a trans guy. Does that mean that you're not gay?
No, it means I'm still gay because Lammy is a guy.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing with us today. I think we have some other friends on their way in. So Louie and Bee are joining us today. Hi, Louie. Hi,
Hello.
Bee.
Hello.
So, you two are both ace, aren't you?
That's right.
That is correct.
So, I imagine you two get perceived as a straight couple very often. How does that work for you?
Well, I'm not actually a female, so we're not a straight couple even if we look it.
But you look like a girl.
I may look like it, but I just like presenting that way. I'm not actually a girl, I'm actually a gender.
Ah, so what does that mean?
It means that I am neither male or female or a man or a woman.
Interesting. There seems to be a lot of gender diversity and non-binary people in the ACE community.
That is right.
So, I bet you two, even if you're not a straight couple, you certainly get mistaken for a fairly typical couple very often. Louis being a fairly typical looking guy and be looking like a woman even though you're not one.
Yes, that's right. We do get mistaken as a very typical couple, but we're not. We're in a queer platonic relationship, and we're actually married.
Well, what does queer platonic mean?
Queer platonic is a non-romantic relationship, so even though we're not romantically attracted to each other, we're still together in a committed relationship.
Huh, that's interesting. So, does that mean people make a lot of assumptions about you?
Yeah, they do a lot.
You two have any kids?
No, we don't have any kids. That's usually the biggest mistake people make, is they just assume that because we are a very typical looking couple that we are going to have kids, especially because we're married. But we're not really interested in that. We just like being around each other.
And so you're married, but you don't have sex with each other either?
That's right.
That's right.
I realize I'm asking some pretty darn personal questions here.
You really are. It's pretty uncomfortable.
Does that happen a lot?
It does. For
Yeah,
some
it
reason,
does.
people seem to think that they are entitled to know our business, even though they wouldn't ask these questions of a whether straight or typical couple. But since we're not that, they just think they can ask so many questions.
It's really difficult to try to wrap my head on this. So you're married,
Yes.
and you're in this kind of queer platonic relationship, so you're not romantically involved.
That's right.
Yep.
But do you still love each other?
Of course.
Yeah, just in a different way.
Huh, okay. Well, thank you for sharing, and please, maybe next time I'll learn to not ask some really inappropriate personal sexual questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, so next up, I think we have a couple friends here. And when I say couple, I don't mean that they're romantically involved. Oh my goodness, this ace language is getting a little bit tricky for me to handle. So, I'd like to welcome Elle and Zebra to the show. Hello.
Hi. Hi.
My goodness, Elle, why do you look so angry?
What do you mean I look angry? This is what my face looks like normally.
I guess there are a lot of stereotypes of, you know, big angry black woman and all.
Well, there certainly are, and I've certainly had enough of that. Why are you making such a big deal about me being an ace of color anyways? It's not like I'm the only ace of color you interviewed today.
Huh, that is kind of silly of me. I guess you're right. I didn't even really notice.
I mean, there was me, there's Zebra here, and there was Bee and Lammy.
Huh, that's right. I forget that you all know each other.
We are all friends, of course.
Do you consider yourself part of the LGBT community?
Oh, well, that's a difficult question. I mean, there's a lot of conversations that have been happening within ACE communities and the larger LGBT community. I personally don't identify within the LGBT community, but that's my own choice.
How about you, Zebra?
I do identify within the LGBT community, actually.
Okay. I guess there's a lot to think about. These things are kind of complicated.
Definitely.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry. I'm just a silly frog here. I was asking some people some pretty personal questions earlier, and that is something I need to learn how to not do as well. So, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourselves? I hear that you're both ace, though. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So, we had some people on who were in a dating relationship earlier, and some other people who were in a queer platonic relationship.
Yeah? Well, I'm asexual and aromantic, so I don't do romantic relationships, and I don't do sexual relationships either.
My goodness, doesn't that get lonely?
Lonely? I have tons of family and friends, and I have lots of fun with them. I don't need sexual or romantic relationships in the same way that other people might have those relationships, because I have other relationships in my life.
Huh. What kind of relationships do you have in your life?
Well, like I said before, I have friends and I have family, and we do typical things I guess friends and family would do. Relationships, other relationships aren't really something that I'm necessarily interested in. But if other people want to do those kind of relationships, it's not my biz.
We also had people asking, well, telling me that I was asking inappropriate questions about sex, and I don't think I've quite learned my lesson yet. How do you feel about sex?
Like I said, I'm asexual, so sexual relationships aren't something I'm interested in. As a matter of fact, I'm what some people will describe as sex repulsed, so sex and me is no bueno.
So, we had some people on earlier who were contemplating maybe having some sex in their relationship, and that's not something you'd ever want to do.
Not one bit.
Well, thank you for answering some really inappropriate personal questions. How about you, Zebra?
Well, I've had some experiences of violence in my past, so I've had a hard time coming to this ace identity, and I'm starting to feel more comfortable, but I think it still will take some time.
So, do you feel like you're asexual because of your experiences of violence?
To be completely honest, I have no idea, but I don't think that it really matters because I identify as ace now, and that's all that really matters.
So you're still ace, even if it might have been caused by something?
Yeah, sure, why not?
Huh. Learning new things every day. Thank you, and thank you for sharing. Talking about violence can be a very difficult thing. I think we have some other friends coming up. Would you like to meet them? Or maybe just one more person. I think we have Owl coming up.
Hello.
So, my mind is a little bit blown with all these different experiences and identities. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, well, I identify as agender, so I don't feel comfortable being identified as either male or female. I don't have a gender.
Okay. So does that mean you're asexual, or is that something different?
That's separate from my asexual identity. I identify as gray asexual, which means that basically I'm asexual, but sometimes I do experience sexual feelings or will very rarely participate in sexual activity.
Okay, so let me get this straight. So you've got your agender, so you don't have a gender, and
Right.
on top of that, you're on the asexual spectrum and you're gray asexual.
Yes.
Okay. So does that mean you don't do romantic relationships at all?
No, I do romantic relationships sometimes, and I'm panromantic, so that means that I can experience romantic feelings for someone of any gender.
Wow, that must be tricky, trying to navigate that. Very complicated.
Yeah, it is sometimes. Sometimes people say that I have too many identities.
You were telling me earlier that you also have some issues with chronic pain.
I do. I have chronic pain, which it's an invisible disability because people can't tell I have it just by looking at me, but it really does affect my life.
Is that maybe why you think you're asexual?
No, I don't think it has anything to do with it.
I guess you get that a lot, though, don't you? People assuming that that might be causing something and using that to try and invalidate your identity?
I do. A lot of people don't understand, but luckily, most people in the ACE community are pretty understanding, and they don't judge me.
You certainly do have a lot of labels, though.
I do. I also have a mental illness, so that's another label that some people don't understand. But again, that doesn't really have anything to do with my other identities.
How does that affect you being ace?
Well, I don't think it really does affect me being ace, but I just hope to have people in my life that are really understanding and will take the time to get to know me.
Great. Is there anything that we can do to try and make things better? I know you said you're agender, but what does that mean? How am I supposed to talk about you?
Well, you can use gender neutral pronouns like they, because then you're not putting the gender that you perceive onto the person, you're letting the person express themselves as agender.
But isn't they a plural pronoun?
Well, it can be plural, but people that identify as agender or non-binary have begun using these kinds of pronouns to identify themselves as an individual.
Wait a second, Bea was on the show earlier and she was agender, but she seemed to be okay using she pronouns.
Well, some people that are agender are okay with using pronouns from one of the genders, but I would prefer to just be identified as they or them.
Okay, I think I can try and do that. It's kind of tricky, but I'm sure I'll get the hang of it eventually.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
All right, well, thank you for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Big thank you goes out to all of our ACE community guests for sharing some of their experiences. I guess I'm really learning that it's not really okay to ask personal questions like how people feel about sex, especially when I'm just getting to know them. I guess I never have to deal with anybody asking me if I'm having sex or if I masturbate or what my body parts look like. I'm glad I didn't ask that. But certainly learning a lot. There's also a lot to learn about gender in the ACE community. I'm seeing my statistics here that about a quarter of the people in the ACE community are non-binary in terms of gender. So we met a couple agender people here. So there's a lot of new stuff to learn about. I'm certainly glad that everybody took the time to share with me. Thank you. Find out more information about ACE Toronto online at acetoronto.wordpress.com or follow us on Tumblr at ace-toronto@tumblr.com.